Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy Jonathan Macri with you for another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast, a live edition. We've been doing this now for a few weeks. It keeps us on our toes. I am here with Jeremy Cohen. Happy Sunday afternoon to you, sir. How are you?
Thank you, John. Happy Sunday afternoon to you. I'm as good as one can be when your basketball team has lost every game this week and their franchise player went down with an injury. So other than that, doing just fine. How are you?
Should we scrap any Knicks talk this episode and just make a list of the teams that are in worse positions than the Knicks right now to make ourselves collectively feel better? Off the top of your head, how many teams would be on that list? Like right now, today?
Are we talking this season or
we're talking vibes? We're talking not like actual logic. Like, no, the Knicks are better off than the I don't know, fucking Pacers or something. But like,
I would say, vibes. Well, there are at least 10 teams that are just outright tanking. So it would seem.
That's correct.
So Knicks in the top 20 already. Great start to it.
That's not bad.
It's not bad. And then, of course, they're still quite good. And now they just have to learn how to play and win games without Jalen Brunson. So I would say, they're still probably in the top 10 to 12 in terms of vibes for a fan base. For us, it's going to feel a lot worse than that because, usually we think about ourselves and not others around us. And the others around us are all looking for flag or was it waving the flag for the white flag?
Waving the white flag for a flag.
And then it's the teams that are stuck in the middle that maybe don't have their picks and they're kind of just going for it because what other choice do they have? And then it's about 10 other teams that have a strong to incredible chance of, I don't know about winning a championship, but contending at the very least, making it to the second round. So vibes are fine, but in the grand scheme of things, but if we're doing a week to week thing, man, they're pretty rancid.
Yeah, it's been I mean, look, we've probably said this every episode. It's been an interesting season. I don't know for me what I put the vibes right now. And we have a lot to get to, and we're going to get to all of it because there's legitimately a lot to talk about with this team right now. I would not put things right now as low as they were following the Cleveland and Boston games because there was in a weird way, there was almost a finality to that where it's like, oh, this season no longer matters in terms of the hopes and dreams that many had. Now, whether that's true or not is besides the point, but that was almost the feeling in the moment. I think for a lot of people, it's like, oh, the season just ended. I think you could, I don't know. We don't know anything about Brunson yet in terms of like how long he's going to be out. I mean, in theory, he can miss the rest of the season. We have no idea. I don't think that's going to be the case, and we'll talk about the optimistic reports specifically from Ian Begley. But like, I don't know. I feel like it's definitely a lull. There's definitely a lot of concern about the team right now, and it's like, are we talking ourselves into something that's better, or are there legitimate reasons to believe like, no, this too shall pass, and what everybody's feeling and thinking right now is not the be all end all. Let me ask you something. Logistical programming note. This is how we do things. We do things live on the air. Should we talk about Tucker and get it out of the way and then go through some of the bigger picture stuff, or do you want to save the Tucker stuff for later? It's up to you.
Let's talk about the stuff that happened this week, and then we'll shift to PJ Tucker.
And then we'll shift to PJ Tucker before we get on to the rest of the show. Okay. So as far as I could see it, there are like 4 or 5, of course, interrelated things going on right now. And you tell me of these 4 or 5 things, which is the most interesting to you. Number one, the Jalen Brunson injury, just the injury in and of itself, and how long is he going to be out? How is the team going to play while he is out? How is he going to look when he gets back? That's number one. Number two is the impact of the Jalen Brunson injury in terms of the impact that it'll have on the larger goals this season. And I guess to be a little bit more specific, like how much do we care about seeding? And does seeding really matter? Is there a point to which seeding doesn't matter? But then if it gets too low, it does matter. So that's number two. Number three is the fact that this team is not playing particularly well right now and has not been playing particularly well for a while. Or at least I think that is the perception. It is certainly my perception, and we could again talk about whether that's fair or not. And then I'll just go number 4 as like you could split this into 2, but like another loss against a very good team, albeit a different sort of loss than the, Cavs and Celtics in like the last Thunder game. But also like associated with that is the fact that there are things that other teams are doing against the Knicks that were a major problem in week 1 of this iteration of the team and are still a major problem in week, I don't know how many friggin' weeks we are into the regular season of this team. So of all of those things, which is like the most interesting or like discussion worthy topic to you?
To me, it probably has to be the the more grand scheme of things. The
Okay.
Jalen Brunson injury, obviously, very important. We will talk about that. But when you look at how this team has functioned over a longer period of time, as you talked about, that is honestly more concerning to me because I think that they can weather the storm without Brunson because, to not to be a Brian Cashman type, but if we can get Brunson back before the playoffs, I feel better. That is where my mindset is generally, but it just feels like so much of this team is reliant on Jalen Brunson. And that is a problem. It extends to the injury, but also to the team as a whole. Because, I mean, this is a team that since January 1st, the turn of the calendar, has the 20th defense and the 12th offense in the NBA without garbage time. That is not a contender. Like,
No.
there's nothing
No,
about that screams contender. And this has been going on for 30 games. So what we saw in the beginning of the season was phenomenal offense. And the defense, you could kind of talk yourself into they're getting settled. They don't have Mitchell Robinson. They're working through the kinks. It's fine. But now we've gotten to a point where, especially the most played lineup, correct me if I'm wrong, in the NBA with this Knicks starting 5, especially when healthy with Jalen Brunson, is still underwater defensively and is passable offensively, but not doing anything to solidify itself as a lineup that deserves to be played repeatedly and as many minutes as it is. And now that
Can we
lineup's not
stick
going to
on
see
that for a
time.
sec?
Sure, but that lineup's not going to see time because Jalen Brunson is not playing. But that is a huge part of it too.
I think we should stop there for a second because you just noted since January 1st. I'm going to give you a devil's advocate position, and then I'm going to give you the devil's advocate to the devil's advocate. You said it was 30 games since January 1st, right?
Yes.
Okay. So all 5 starters have been healthy for 16 of those 30 games.
Mm-hmm.
So that's and as a team that is very obviously reliant on its top players, the fact that they have had at least one of those starters missing for roughly half of the games since January 1st, I think is notable. They have a slightly winning record in those 16 games, 9-7, but that's not great, which is going to lead to the devil's advocate, which is the starting lineup in those 16 games is giving up 117.3 points per 100 possessions, is scoring 114.5 points per 100 possessions, which means they are getting outscored by an average of 2.8 points per 100 possessions. That sucks. Yes. That sucks if you're a team in the aforementioned bottom 10 of playing for ping pong balls. Because theoretically, it's your first 5. It's the 5 that gives you the best chance to win. It is the 5 that they have the most chemistry together. All those things. If you're a team that's aspiring to win a championship, that's really not good. So, there are problems going on. And the fact that now they are not going to have Jalen Brunson on the floor to try to work out those problems for I'll just say foreseeable future, is distressing. However, one more, you didn't think I had another one in me. Devil's advocate to the devil's advocate to the devil's advocate. Is there an argument? And I've talked about this a little bit, or I mentioned this in the newsletter, that the best way, because Jalen Brunson is such a known commodity, and we know exactly what he does, and it's like we know what his impact is going to be. Is there an argument that the best way for them to get out of the funk that they've been in is actually to figure it out without Jalen Brunson on the court?
first of all, I love the Knicksception that you've had, the layers. It's so
it's
complex.
Inception. There you go.
Well
That's
done.
exactly
Yeah.
what it is.
The short answer to that, at least from my vantage point, is no,
Okay.
because I would like to see what this team looks like with Jalen Brunson and the other players around him excelling, as opposed to kind of give the ball to Jalen, get out of the way. Like, he is an incredible clutch player. He should win clutch player of the year. This is, of course, assuming he can. I believe he needs 4 more games in order to qualify for that award, because
We're gonna
he's at
we'll get
61.
there.
So I love what he's able to do to take over a game, but why is it that Jalen Brunson has to be put in the position, number one, to be so high usage in clutch moments? And number two, why are there so many clutch moments? Because if the Knicks are the team that we envision them to be, there should be fewer moments where their clutch time matters as much. At least that's the hope, right? You look at other teams that are better than them, and perhaps there are not as many clutch moments because they've already done their business earlier. The Knicks can't take care of business in the fourth quarter. This has been a consistent problem for them. They're 20th in net rating in the fourth quarter at negative 3.5. The better teams ahead of them are ahead of them in this category. There's really no team record-wise that's better than them that has a worse record in the fourth. So Knicks can dominate in the second quarter. They've done that a lot. First quarter, they're not great there either. A lot of it comes back to the lineups they use, and it's that feeling of, okay, well, like for example, with the Lakers game, they held a lead, right? I mean, they were up by 8 to start the fourth quarter,
and they were up by 10 with 8, or like in the first half of the fourth quarter.
Right. Warriors game. I mean, a little different, tale of two halves, but right. But
yeah,
so that's slightly different there. But then the Clippers game, they, even without Jalen Brunson against a good Clippers team in LA, they were down by 1 to start the fourth. But it never really felt like they had it in the Clippers game. It kind of just felt like they were clawing back, and the Clippers had more talent on the other side than the Knicks did, especially with Jalen Brunson being out. But I digress, because the real point here is the Knicks didn't take care of business in the fourth quarter, which is a habit that they have had plaguing them this whole season. And as a result of not being able to close properly, and I have no problem with clutch moments against a Lakers team that's been that good, but they didn't take care of business. And then it led to extra time. And in overtime, Jalen Brunson gets hurt. So you lose the quarter, you lose the overtime period, and then he's out the next game, and then at least the next 2 weeks, which means you lose the Clippers game largely because you don't have your best player. And then you're on this West Coast trip where you need to, it's pretty grueling to go out there. You need to have your best players to be able to win those types of games. And now they're without their best player. So it just feels like a small thing of the fourth quarter that just builds and builds, and then creates, like, this is how you start to free fall a little bit. And I don't say that in a panicky way, because the Knicks there's still some room, especially with the Bucks losing last night. I think they're 3.5 ahead. But this is it's those types of small margins where if you lose them, you never know what could happen, the what ifs. And it's led to no Jalen Brunson now.
So it's interesting that you're talking about fourth quarter issues, and the fourth quarter net rating is what it is. It's not great. There have been times this year, certainly, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like there haven't, because there have, and they have been notable, and they have happened on some big stages, where the offense gets clunky in the fourth quarter and gets a little stodgy, whatever. I'm not picking a great adjective here, and teams maybe get back into it a little bit when the Knicks have a lead. I don't think you do either, but correct me if I'm wrong. I have never had the sense that this team has like a choker part of their DNA, or like even that they don't take things seriously. I just, it's a bad habit that they occasionally dip into. I'm talking specifically on the offensive end, more than a problem that I am like significantly worried about, specifically as a fourth quarter thing moving forward. Is that a fair characterization?
Yeah, I don't view anyone as a choker on this team.
Yeah. Defensively, there is definitely more of a sense that if like our teams are bearing down and the Knicks have their 5 starters on the floor, like, you will be able to get a good shot against this basketball team, which I didn't anticipate myself going to a positive from this week so early, but I am going to go to a positive here, which is that I think both in the Laker game and the Clipper game. Now, granted, the Clipper game, they didn't have Jalen Brunson. That's a significant. You could make the argument that is a significant positive on the defensive end. I thought we saw real progress on defense. Now, I know the Lakers scored 19 points in the last 6 minutes and change or whatever it was. There were some stops. I thought there were some stops of note. Certainly with the Clippers, I thought they defended after the first 4 or 5 minutes of that game. I thought they defended the Clippers pretty well. Clippers just were hitting, shots from all over the court in the first half, which that stuff happens.
And Knicks weren't.
Well, we're gonna get to that. No, they were not from anywhere. So that's again defense, bigger issue, but maybe if you're squinting, you see some signs of progress. I think the bigger problem here is, and this is going to get into a few individual folks, looking at the starting five, because that's really what we're focusing on here, right? Is the starting five. I don't feel like there's any one person to blame. Do you?
Well,
among the players.
I don't.
Which is, and I think you were thinking this. If there's no one person on the players to blame, I think that's why, as they drop these games, there continues to be an inordinate amount of attention on the head coach, or at least someone who is not on the floor. Because and I think, and I'm still a big fan of him. Shout out to Ben Kim Gervey. I'm drinking from your Josh Hart mug, Ben. I still love Josh Hart. Josh Hart is, I will go to bat for Josh Hart till the end of time. Josh Hart is so symbolic of the issues with the starting five, because take the Clipper game. The guy plays outstanding, not good, not great, outstanding individual defense on Kawhi Leonard, who is still a pretty good player when he's on the floor. He grabs a career high 20 rebounds. The best the offense looked all night, I would argue, is when either the ball is in his hands or when he's involved in the action as a screener or whatever. So literally, Josh Hart is out there doing pretty much everything that Josh Hart can do. And yet, it's you look at what happens when he's on the floor, and there's all these issues about teams not guarding him, and it kind of makes the offense not work great. And he's had some issues on defense too, but we don't have to go there right now. So this mix that they have had 63 games now, albeit there's been players injured for parts of those games, is not working. And yeah, McCall is underwhelmed, and yeah, Cat's defense has maybe even been a little bit worse than expected. And Josh has regressed to a point with his shooting that I don't think anybody could have expected. And OG Anunoby has been through some slumps, and we haven't seen the full OG effect on defense until very recently. So you could pick at all of these different players here and there and say, individually, each one has not lived up to expectations. And yet that does not feel like a get out of jail free card here, and it's all right, well, there's one of three. There's only one of three answers. Either the starting five just doesn't work and it needs to, it's not going to work under any head coach. That's number one. Number two is they don't have the players on this team to make a cohesive starting five out of what's currently on this roster. Or three, there's stuff that the coach is not doing that he should be doing, or maybe could be doing differently. And I think that's where a lot of my favorite word, consternation, lies right now. Do you disagree with any of that?
Is there a significant difference between 1 and 3?
Maybe there's not.
Is 1 more on the players and 3 more on the coaching?
I guess so. Well, it's is there a change to the starting five? And I understand this is maybe seems like a silly conversation to have because we're not going to have the starting five for the next however many weeks. But I agree with you, by the way. This is the most interesting part of the conversation for me because of what we saw over the last several weeks, and including in the games against Cleveland and Boston. Because hey, the starting five was there for the Boston game, not the Cleveland game. But they were there for other big games. Is there a starting lineup change that is long overdue that we should have seen by now? And you have a couple of options now at this point, right? With Mitch in the starting lineup, with Deuce McBride in the starting lineup. I guess if it's on the it could be on the players. Like, are you not considering that possibility?
I look at these 5 players, and each one of them individually is great at what they do.
Yeah.
I understand. The Hart thing to me is like he's very clearly in some ways. I mean, Tibbs has several Luol Dangs, but maybe is he the most Luol Dang of the players that are on this team? Perhaps, at least in terms of how he gives them minutes.
Is
I guess it
Noah
is.
a better comp? I'm sorry, I'm going way off the rails here, because Noah was like a very imperfect player in certain ways, but he was at the center of so much. Maybe Dang is a better. To me, McCall is supposed to be the Dang of the team, and he hasn't quite been the Dang of the team, which is a problem.
It is, and then that's the other thing. I look at someone like Mikal Bridges. We've talked about what it's taken to acquire him. That's in the past. What's in the present, what's in the future is how he's being used, because when his most popular play type is as a catch and shoot guy, the Knicks didn't trade all of that for someone to merely be a spot up shooter. No. And I'm sure some of that is on Bridges, but other parts of it are, why are we not seeing more actions with him? And that's then on the coaching, because based on how the Knicks spread the floor and the weapons that they have, especially when healthy, Bridges is like, he should have room to do more, as opposed to just pull up mid-range shots or having this hierarchy release from the corner. Like there's got to be more from him. And I liked the level of aggression that he had. I believe he had 6 free throws in the Clippers game, which is tied for his season high.
Yes, and he was fouled 5 times.
Right. Yeah. And that's great. Like, that's something that we just simply have not seen. And is it just because a player has shrunk? Like, I'd be surprised if that's the case, because we know what he can do on other teams, whether it's more of a focal point or a supporting role. We saw him in Phoenix, where he was on that near championship team, finished in the finals. He had I believe the 5th highest usage of the 5 starters. So we know that he can be a strict catch and shoot guy. Then he goes to Brooklyn, and he had some nice moments where maybe he shouldn't be a first option, but he can be a viable second option. And then he comes to New York, a place where he should be comfortable. Look at who he's playing with. Look at the type of environment that he's in. And it's just there's not the level of production. So it's a question of, is it on the player who has regressed compared to what we know that he can do, or are his best traits not being emphasized? And that is where my concern lies, because I know what we've seen from the player, and I know that you either fit into a specific role for this coach, and if you don't buy into that role, it can be a little problematic. I mean, the thing for me is, last season, for example, it felt like any guy, you wouldn't depend on it, but you would get these 40-point explosions from different players. And I'm probably misremembering and just saying this for the sake of it, so please check me if that's the case. But I just don't have that same feeling this year. It doesn't feel like, and which is kind of crazy, because I know OG has had an incredible game, some incredible games, set his career high. I'd like the Mikal Bridges Christmas game. That was a phenomenal performance. Jalen Brunson's doing Jalen Brunson things. Cat can still be a superstar level player, but it's definitely been impacted by his injuries, at least from the outside looking in, is how it would seem. He was doing incredible work, and now he's doing solid work. But then on the defensive side, especially, how many possessions are there where he might lose his man, not have his hand up on the perimeter? I thought he did a really nice job in isolation. He typically does well in isolation. Yes. But then it still goes back to the rim protection. And then it goes back to, how do you add rim protection next to Karl Anthony Towns? Because right now the Knicks have, in their starting lineup, 3 very good perimeter defenders, but then something's just not working.
Well, so you said a lot there.
Yes.
I think it's funny. Yes, every player in the starting lineup has had outbursts this season, but much in the same way where the first season, I'm not comparing the 2 teams, the first season of the Heatles, it was your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn. Like, they've had moments, right, where it's like Mikal had maybe the best month of his career, and OG Anunoby has had stretches of offensive dominance, and Josh Hart has had moments where we're like, oh my gosh, Josh Hart secretly the most important player on the Knicks, and obviously Towns and Brunson, that their accolades speak for themselves. And yet at no time has it felt really like this team is coalescing. Certainly not at both ends, but you could even argue like, yeah, they've had stretches of really, really, really good offense. But in terms of like when they've been challenged by good defenses, have they been able to, has it ever felt like the whole is greater than the sum of the parts? It is wild that we have sat here at various times this season and made cases, legitimate straight-face cases for every single player in the starting five for an all-star berth. Like even Mikal Bridges, when he was by the end of December, we were like, holy shit, should he be the Knicks' third all-star? And that was a real thing that happened. And yet we're sitting here, we're talking about the starting five can't, find their way out of a paper bag. Where I'm gonna push back a little bit on the Bridges part of it is, I think, and shout out to DJ Zulo, he has a video out right now after you're done. If you're watching this live on the Knicks Film School YouTube channel, after you're done, go watch DJ Zulo's video if you've missed it, because he breaks down how the Knicks utilize Mikal Bridges as more of an on-ball creator. And one of the first things DJ says in the video is like, yeah, Mikal Bridges had 5 assists, but those 5 were mostly like, just pass it to the next guy, and that guy either puts the ball on the floor and scores or like puts up a 3 or something. It's not Mikal Bridges creating shots. And while the drawing 5 fouls is incredibly encouraging, the fact that Mikal is not an engine as much as he is a decent isolation scorer, I think is maybe the reason why there has not been more of an effort to funnel the offense through him. Now, is there more meat on the bone that we're just not seeing, to your point? Or like, there's all kinds of questions that come with that. The last thing I want to say, your comp to last year, the amazing thing about last year was that they were so depleted that every player on the roster needed to max out their ability, and not even max out their ability, max out their role on the team, to the point that there was no jockeying for like shots or usage, any of that kind of stuff. It was like, guys, if we're going to win tonight, Isaiah, you got to be at your best. DiVincenzo, you got to be at your best. Josh, you got to be at your best. Needless to say, Brunson, you got to be at your best. Everybody had to be at their absolute best, and they needed to tap into everything that everybody brought to the table. With this team, there's a lot of skill and a lot of ability and all of that shit, and yet it doesn't feel like there's room for everybody to be like at least the best version of what they think they are. And I don't know if I'm getting too highfalutin here, but that's kind of where I've arrived at, as I think, because like, again, the fact that these 5 guys are this bad and have been this bad for a while, like there's no, it goes against all reason, to me at least.
No, I agree. Are they talented? Yes. Are they intelligent? Yes. Do they complement each other? Yes. All of the pieces that you would have fitting here, they're there. It's just,
and I think they're unselfish.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And, I mean, when you look at a team like the Celtics, I feel like a big reason, because Jason Tatum's a phenomenal player. And what's funny is it's like he has no aura to him, and a lot of fans just don't like him. And I'm sure that a lot of it has to do with playing for the Boston Celtics.
40 points against the fucking Lakers is a nice aura, but yeah, digress.
But like, he's just, for whatever reason, and maybe it's where he plays, but
I know.
I often think with Tatum, it's like, if you needed him to take over, he probably could. But because of the play style and the facilitating and the trust and how the Celtics scheme, he doesn't have to be an MVP caliber player. He can play that, but it's not a reliance. And it feels often like the Knicks rely on Jalen Brunson. They'll have to rely on Karl Anthony Towns. And I just wish that there were a situation where everybody got some of their own, and they didn't have to feel like, to your point with the Heatles, your turn, my turn. And it doesn't, the gelling just doesn't feel there.
Can I push back a little bit? Is it what you just said, which I think, by the way, is probably the most likely answer? Or is it the fact that in Boston, Kristaps Porzingis is very comfortable taking 13 shots a game, and Derek White is very comfortable taking a dozen shots a game? And perhaps the biggest contributor, the biggest factor here is that Drew Holiday is comfortable taking 9 shots a game. Now, if you go over to the Knicks and their average amount of shots, and by the way, Tatum, like he's over 20. Brown, I think, is 18 and change. I already went away from the page. But look at the Knicks. Jalen Brunson, under 19 shots a game. Karl-Anthony Towns, 16.7. Mikal Bridges, 14.6. OG Anunoby, 13. Josh Hart, 10.2. So, like, they're kind of lined up, and it just feels like maybe OG is a sort of guy, like, he needs more like 10 shots a half or something. Not 10 shots a half. No, like superstars get 10 shots a half. But like maybe the next level down. Like, is it literally a difference of like an extra 3-4 shots a game for him to feel more comfortable? Is it a difference of an extra 3-4 shots a game for Mikal Bridges to feel comfortable? Josh Hart doesn't need the shots, but that gets into a whole nother issue. I don't know. I'm just trying to find other reasons here. And it's honestly, simplest reason might be the best one, which is like, there's something about this group. They're not coalescing, and maybe there's more that could be done to make them coalesce. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, we'll see if I'm right, or we'll see if you're right, they're going to have to do it without Jalen Brunson over the next few weeks. I personally think that maybe pie in the sky. I think maybe there is a world where they could come out of this better than they went into it with Brunson on the shelf. I think that's at least a possibility.
If it helps them, great. It's just they're going to need to learn how to also play with Brunson at a higher level when he comes back. And if they're able to, if this unlocks them, all for it. But if the expectation is Jalen Brunson's back for the playoffs, when Jalen Brunson is here, okay, what happens in the playoffs if Jalen Brunson matches up with a really great point of attack defender and the Knicks take him out of the game? Like, sure, you could say, well, it's good that they got Bridges going a little bit more, but then why are we at the point where we're then saying, hey, here's the silver lining to an injury when it wasn't? What are the Knicks doing to maximize the output of the players while Brunson was still healthy?
Well, that gets back to Tibbs.
Right, exactly.
Because what's a Tibbs offense looks like? It's give me the best player, put him in pick and roll, and and then you draw 2 to the ball, and then you go to your secondary actions or whatever else, That's a Tibbs offense. It's always been a Tibbs offense.
It is. It's like your house floods and causes damage. You're like, well, this is a good excuse for us to renovate. We've been meaning to renovate for a while. Like, you could have renovated before, and it would have been fine. You don't need to wait until catastrophe in order for you to renovate.
Yeah, no, it's very fair. And this is, I think, and to me, like some of the nitty gritty lineup stuff that people get on him with, and obviously the minute stuff, like that stuff is less interesting to me as far as reasons why, Tom Thibodeau may be the Mark Jackson to somebody's Steve Kerr. The notion that there is a world where it's like his general offensive philosophy is not the best way. Now, I'm always going to give you a devil's advocate, especially when it comes to Tibbs. In the last 5 minutes of a close game, like, this is what your offense, every NBA offense devolves into: put the ball in your best player's hands and like just run actions. But that said, it does not mean that has to be the offense for the first 40 whatever minutes. And it's so funny. We're sitting here talking about the offense and complaining about the offense. Meanwhile, the defense is still what it is. And I guess the reason why we're not talking more about that is Mitch just came back. We still don't really know what the full effect. We got 2 glorious minutes of Mitch and Kat together against the Lakers, so that was fun. Yep. Hopefully we'll get some more, on the rest of this West Coast trip and down the stretch of the season. And I also think the defense to a large extent is a lot. And I think we saw this in the form of Josh Hart against the Clippers. I think we saw this in the form of OG Anunoby, certainly against the Miami Heat, and a couple other times recently. I just wonder if the defensive improvement is hitting the play better button. Again, maybe an oversimplification, but given the sort of performances that we've seen recently, and given the return of Mitch, I have to think that that's at least part of it. I don't know how much more we want to talk about that, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at on the defense.
Definitely nice to see him back. Productive, took some pressure off. I mean, the Knicks are still, their scheme doesn't change significantly. They're just able to execute their scheme better, right? I mean, they're still letting other teams shoot threes, testing them to make it.
Yeah.
A lot of times they have. And then the Knicks have lost games because of that. And then if they're not taking threes, and if they're not even attempting them, and also if other teams are scheming them away from that and forcing them perhaps into, say, like of Bridges mid-range. It's not going to help them win games either. So it's great to see Mitch back. There's a calming presence, but like unless the scheme changes, we're really just talking about the execution of it, aren't we?
I think so. And, again, there's different issues there. The threes they allow versus the threes they do or don't take. As far as this week goes, I actually think they did a really good job. I'm not even going to say taking threes. I'm going to say generating threes. I thought they did a nice job generating threes. And the reason why, like, I'm not, again, Brunson injury aside, I'm not that bummed out by this week is against the Lakers. They missed 17 of their last 18 3-point attempts. And against the Clippers, and I looked this up right before we went on, they in terms of open or wide open 3-point attempts as defined by NBA.com, and there's people that go on and they judge each shot as to how far away the closest defender is. They were 8 for 28 on open or wide open threes. Josh Hart, by the way, 1 of 4. Everybody else who took those open or wide open threes were actual real shooters. The Josh Hart of it all is another issue altogether, which frankly, is what it is at this point. I don't know what else there is to say about it. And then, by the way, in the restricted area, because it wasn't just from behind the arc where they were putrid, they were 10 of 21 in the restricted area and 11 of 27 in the paint against the Clippers. So, like, second night of a back-to-back, there were issues against LA, against the Clippers, to be more specific. But, like, I'm not going crazy, especially the first game without Brunson. You want to talk about Brunson real quick and just, like, so, I mean, when would you, if you had to take a guess based on the only report that we got, which is update in 2 weeks, what did you take from that report?
I took that it'll be an update in 2 weeks and they'll figure out when he can play, but it's not he's back in 2 weeks. That was my impression. Again, we talked about earlier with he's 4 games away from all NBA minimum criteria. I would not be surprised if. Okay, so I was going to say I wouldn't be surprised if the Knicks just held him out for longer and then he had enough games to do that, but that doesn't feel like something the Knicks have done. It's not something that Tibbs has done. It's certainly not something Jalen Brunson has done. No, right. So he's going to want to get out there as soon as he can to help win games. So in that case, it's really just, do I full that he hits the 65 game criteria minimum? Yes. I would imagine that 2 weeks from that injury, it gets you to late March. Even if he had to wait another week or two, you're still looking at hitting the criteria and playing them with enough games to tune up before you go to the playoffs.
The injury happened. What was Thursday? Thursday's date.
6th.
Thursday was March 6th. So 1 month. I'm adding another 2 weeks onto the 2 weeks. Gets us to, or let's do 4 weeks. 2 weeks onto the 2 weeks. Gets us to Saturday, April 5th against Atlanta. Now that's the first night of a back-to-back, so you don't know, will he play in both of those? And then you got, after that back-to-back, you have 4 additional games. April 8th versus the Celtics, April 10th versus the Pistons, April 11th, another back-to-back versus the Cavs, and then April 13th against the Nets. If he gets back for Saturday, April 5th, so again, I'm adding 2 weeks onto the 2 week time frame, and he plays 4 of those last 6 games, he qualifies for the criteria. I'm not saying that's what I'm anticipating, but it kind of is what I'm anticipating at this point.
I'd be shocked if he didn't play at least 4. Is where I'm at.
All right. Do you care about the standings?
I do care, but it's
to what extent?
That's the thing. So, am I more concerned about the Celtics than I am about the Cavaliers in a second round matchup? Absolutely. But I do think the Cavs, this isn't the same Cavs team. This is a better team. This is a more maximized Mobley. Kenny Atkinson's doing a phenomenal job. He's going to win Coach of the Year. They're just a great team. So I understand the comfort of, if the Knicks drop to 4th, then they avoid the Celtics as long as they can. And do I still think that the Knicks, with a full healthy squad, have a good chance against the Cavs? I do. I certainly wouldn't pick them as the favorites by any stretch, but I know what they can do on the boards, and I know when healthy how they can gel. But we also haven't seen them again fully healthy to the point that we were making earlier. So it does matter. I'm not going to root for losses at this stage because it's just a buzzsaw. No matter what, when you get to the second round, you got to beat the best to be the best. But like, I can certainly find comfort in, all right, if they're losing enough games where they do fall to fourth, then so be it. But then it's no picnic there because you're probably playing, you could be playing the Bucks, who, assuming Giannis is healthy for the first time in the playoffs in 3 years, they're going to be a tough out, but I like their chances at the very least. Playing a Pacers team that beat the Knicks in 7 games, although my concern is, do the Pacers just fire away from 3 because of their depth and hurt the Knicks the same way? And the Knicks offense can't match that. And you play a Pistons team that is very young and inexperienced, incredible defensively. JB Bickerstaff deserves to be second coach of the year. But those types of teams, because of their youth, you're not as worried. I don't want to completely put them down, but there's a learning curve there. And for a great season that Detroit has had, and this is not me writing their obituary, it's merely stating that we've seen what it's like when you get to the playoffs for the first time, and then you meet a team that has that level of playoff experience, like the Knicks and Jalen Brunson do. So I'll be fine if the Knicks fall to 4 or even 5, because sure, it is better with the Cavs, but at the same time, it's a lot of effort just to avoid the Celtics when the Cavs would be a great team too.
I'm at the point, honestly, where I don't think there is a discernible difference between playing the Cavs and the Celtics. I have garnered that much respect for Cleveland over the course of the season, and I think that there is something special happening in Cleveland this year. Not saying I would pick them over the Celtics necessarily. I would want to see how those two teams are playing heading into the playoffs. But we see this in sports sometimes, and it doesn't always mean a team is going to get to the finals. Certainly doesn't mean a team is going to win a championship. But I don't know, man. I'm just going to say it. It feels like we're headed to a classic Eastern Conference Finals, like Game 7. And maybe it matters where that game is. Obviously it would be in Cleveland. That's where it feels like we're headed. So for me, and again, this is the ultimate loser chicken shit, spineless mentality way to look at this. Not saying I'm above any of that, because I'm not. I am at the point now with what we have seen so far this season where I want to avoid the sort of extraordinarily uncomfortable organizational questions that come when a team with very, very high expectations comes into the season and grossly disappoints. And that is not to say that I am hoping that Tom Thibodeau doesn't lose his job, because frankly, I don't really care. I trust that if they fire Tom Thibodeau, they would hire someone who is, I don't want to say better than Tom Thibodeau, but like a real, like someone that's good, someone that is notable, someone that I think Leon Rose and Wes and the whole group have enough of a beat on the pulse of the locker room that whoever they brought in, it's not like they're bringing in fucking Don Nelson and after 50 games, it's like, oh my God, what did we do? And, which got us to Jeff Van Gundy. I trust that whoever they got would be big time. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about does the man upstairs start getting like, oh, wait, this isn't what I signed up for. How much am I paying for this team? Like that sort of a thing. I don't know that there is even a panic trade that they would be able to make this summer, but the kind of even just like the shaking confidence of like the core. But then again, you have Brunson here, so I don't know how much their confidence is really going to be shaken. So maybe this is much ado about nothing, but
the Knicks have a top 10 player, even if I'm being generous, right?
Yeah.
A top 10 player in his prime. It's incredibly difficult to get that guy.
Yes.
We know how hard it is. And look at what the Knicks had to give up to get Carmelo Anthony to get that guy. And it just simply wasn't meant to be there. So as long as the Knicks have a healthy Jalen Brunson, they're fine. Yeah. It's just, how do they get from fine to great? And it's not just going to be about personnel, because they've added personnel that fits around Brunson, and it should be working, and it's just not. And Therein lies.
Therein lies the. Well, you know who might be the answer? PJ Tucker. Can I be honest with you? I saw the tweet yesterday. I was out grabbing takeout Thai food when the news broke. And I forget who tweeted it out, but like maybe it was a few people. Like PJ Tucker brings championship experience, and for the life of me, I could not remember what title team he was on. And this morning, I finally looked it up. I was like, oh yeah, he was on that Bucks team. So yeah, I'd forgotten that.
Yes, I did too. For whatever reason, I thought it was the Raptors, and I knew it wasn't because it didn't feel right.
Well, he wasn't.
He
was just a Raptor, right?
He was. Well, yes, yeah, but like it just. I believe he played. Didn't he play for the Raptors at one point in his career though?
You mean before this recent time?
Yeah. Well, he didn't play for the Raptors this time.
Hold on. Now we're gonna again.
Yeah, he played for the Raptors in 2016-17.
There you go.
He was traded. Yeah, that's right. He was traded from the Suns.
Great,
but then he didn't stay for long, and then he went to the Bucks.
I'll look up PJ Tucker's career stats while you talk about the contractual stuff. Anything that we need to touch on?
Sure. Well, it's 10-day contract, so it's not prorated because the 10-day contract's already prorated. The Knicks haven't announced it as of this moment, which means I would not be surprised if they waited until tomorrow because it's a day off today. They have a game tomorrow. If you wanted to maximize his length, it's better to have him in the building starting then. So if you needed to save money for whatever reason, but there aren't a ton of reasons, like they're already good financially now at this point, they could, but truly it's just, hey, let's give it a day to maximize our window here. I, like you, don't expect much from PJ Tucker on the court. I expect it much more off the court. If you can get someone who's essentially a glorified assistant coach, but from the player level, great. You know, he's not doing anything. He hasn't been doing anything all season. He hasn't played this year. So to expect something from him on a 10-day contract, don't. If you get something from him, fantastic. That's great. Just don't expect it, because if you expect it, you're probably going to leave disappointed. So, like, you know me, 15th men, it doesn't move me very much. It's all margins, but if it can help, I'm all for it. I'm not even against the idea of not signing a player. It's just merely on court production. Will it translate there? I'd be very surprised. But
we should say both of us really talk about sleeping on Giannis. Both of us were sleeping on PJ Tucker. PJ Tucker averaged 31 minutes per game in the finals against the Suns. He
did. That was not last season. It was not the season before that, and it wasn't this season.
No. I'm just saying for the us both forgetting that he was even on that team.
Yes, I see.
It's a bad look for us. But hey, Mark, can you edit that out? Oh wait, no, we're live. Never mind. Look, I think the Bagley stuff about the locker room is not nothing, and is, again, Ian, what's the first rule of following Ian Bagley? Ian always says less than he knows. And if he is making veiled what?
No, you want to say what the locker room was in case people missed it?
As far as I know, it's basically like they could use a veteran voice because it's a lot of young veterans in the locker room. Did I miss any bigger thing than that, or was that it?
I think that's largely it.
So again, Ian, I don't think, unless I missed it, Ian has not like come out and reported like, oh, there's issues in the locker room or they really need, no. It's just they could use a veteran voice. And that makes sense. Like the oldest rotation player in the locker room is well, actually no, how old is Campaign? Campaign is
31, I think.
Okay, well, whatever. But he's more of a bit player. Yeah, but even 31, you know,
Delon Wright as well, though.
What's that?
Delon Wright is older than Campaign.
Somehow I don't think that Delon Wright's the guy who's leading the charge. No, I think, you know, and like, you know, when the fact that Tucker has been through the wars, that he has a lot of playoff, like deep playoff success. I mean, this is a guy who's been to 3 conference finals in addition to that finals. A bunch of been to the conference semis a total of 4 times in his career. So like he's been through it. I think his voice will probably carry weight. Is he going to take over leadership in the locker room? Like, no, that's not a thing. But to maybe, you know,
it could be though.
You never know. You never know. It can't hurt. I don't think. And again, the one thing that I think we could all trust as far as Leon and Wes and the group that they have running the show is that they have a good beat on the personality angle of it and the culture part of it. So I think if they're bringing in Tucker, they feel pretty confident that it's going to be a positive.
I'd imagine he also knows his role, which is not to be on the court. Which, this is a reason why I am in favor of the signing, because if you are looking at ways, especially post trade deadline, how you shake things up without it being chaotic, it's just using the money you have available to bring in a player that can feel like a fresh change of pace, that can bring in that new voice of reason, that maybe things start to click a little bit more. And if that's the cost of doing business for 10 days. And then you could do it after that for another 10 days. And you could do it after that for the rest of the season if you wanted to with PJ Tucker. And the belief of, okay, if this 15th man isn't going to see any time, the value of him versus, say, TJ Warren or Moses Brown, it's understandable. I'd understand why, especially at the Knicks center situation a little bit weakened, why you'd go with Moses Brown. But I guess he probably wouldn't be playing anyway. So if he's not playing anyway, you might as well have someone who is that veteran who has the experience.
I think that's very well said. Okay. Let's give out some game balls. For
one more thing.
Wait, one more thing. Yes, one more thing.
Let's talk about Tyler Kolek quickly.
Oh my God. So I was in the I guess we're gonna go a little over an hour. That's fine. I was in the bagel shop earlier today, and I check my Twitter DMs about once a month. And I saw that Kevin Danishevsky, shout out Kevin, it sent me a DM yesterday that I shouldn't air. I won't say exactly what he said, but he was basically opining that I'm gonna quote him: the Tyler Kolek nonsense is too much has been made of this. To which I responded, "What Tyler Kolek nonsense?" Because I have no earthly fucking clue what is. I saw something like he was like with the G League, and then he was on his way to the team, and he didn't get there, or maybe he did get there. Like, who gives a fuck? Did Tyler Kolek get the super serum soldier shit that Captain America got that turned him into Larry fucking Bird? Because if he didn't, I don't give a shit. What am I missing? Please tell me what is happening.
Well, primarily it's just Brunson, his injury should open up the door for more Kolek minutes.
In what world? They have Deuce McBride and Campaign on this team. Campaign has been one of the best backup point guards in the league.
I agree.
Is the rookie 34th pick in the draft. Who gives a shit?
People do, and I'll tell you why.
Why? Are people that fucking bored? It's starting to get warm outside. Go walk your fucking dog. Go to the park.
Well, I don't understand the level of consternation. I just don't get it. Look,
but is this what it was about, that he didn't make it to the team in time?
No. There are two parts of it, right? There's the side of why didn't he get to the team on time, where to me, it's just, that's not something that I really care about as much.
Okay.
Like, it's the other part of, okay, now that he's with the team, it's him seeing time and him playing.
Oh my God.
And that's the only, I don't understand why it's causing so much uproar for you.
No, it's not causing uproar for me. I shouldn't say this, but because it makes me look bad, but it truly does never ceases to amaze me that people will find things to get upset about when the team is underperforming. And it doesn't matter how many rocks they have to look under, they will find something to get their panties twisted in a bunch. And I just, like, for the life of me, like, what are we doing here?
I agree and I disagree, right?
Okay.
Where I disagree is, especially, the starting lineup is largely devoid of playmaking when you have Deuce McBride starting. That's a problem. And that's not me saying, hey, Tyler Kolek, start games, go right ahead. But there is something to be right. It's not, but it's something to be said of, all right, if you do need more playmaking, because Cameron Payne, to your point, like, if you look at players who've had at least 500 minutes this season, he's 22nd in the league in corner three assists, and the Knicks take a lot of corner threes. So, like, that's making plays for others. That does a great job. We know that the pull up gravity, that's great there too. It's just a question of if you can find other guys who can fit that playmaking role. And there's a reason for Kolek then to find some minutes here, something that he hasn't been able to do because he had Jalen Brunson and Cameron Payne ahead of him. No shame of that whatsoever. What I am thinking though, from the more towards your side now with Kolek, is I think that there is now kind of especially if you're not in favor of Tibbs, there's an argument that you can make no matter what, where it's like a win-win-win argument. If Kolek doesn't play, it's Kolek should be playing. If Kolek does play and he plays well, he should have done this when there are times that he could have matured in the G League. He needed reps there that he wouldn't have gotten perhaps at the NBA level. Or if he plays and doesn't play well, he needed development. These are the growing pains when the Knicks are trying to win. So that's where I struggle with it. But all being said, I don't see much issue with him playing while Jalen Brunson's out.
There are 19 games left in the season. The fact that we're talking about that Tyler Kolek may be part of the answer after this amount of games is
why
perhaps indicative of some larger problems.
Why? I'm just curious why.
Because he's a rookie.
So
he's a rookie.
But
rookies typically don't help you win basketball games.
I agree. But also the Knicks, if they don't have the talent right now without him, and he can try to add something. Because if we're saying he's a rookie, what happens next season, right? Next season, he's a year older. Then he won't have experience whatsoever. So if you feel like that the Knicks are going to lose games, perhaps regardless, and maybe you don't, but if you're of that mindset, then there's the idea of, well, if you can get this player to get those reps to soak up minutes, at this rate, based on the logic you're providing, because he hasn't had that experience, he'll never get that experience. So and now saying next year when he's a year older, but he hasn't had the experience, it's going to be, well, he didn't have time to play. So that's
now
where I'm confused.
So now a team with a top 6 record in the league, we are playing players for development purposes for next season. That's what we're doing here now.
You're twisting the words, and that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
It's no, because you're saying he's a rookie, and I'm pushing back on that because by that logic, then when is he going to get the experience that would be helpful for the long term?
He'll get that experience in the summer and in the G League and on his own fucking time because he's not getting it.
We're talking about summer league right now. Summer league is where he's going to get growth. He's doing well in the G League.
Great.
What is the summer? What is the summer going to do that changes everything for you? He's already doing well in the G League.
On the top 100 list of things that I'm concerned about with this Knicks team right now, Tyler Kolek's development is probably number 101. If Tyler Kolek wasn't a 6'2" point guard and instead was a 6'7" wing who had gone to 4 years of college and had a skill set that looked like profile to something that could really help this team, basically, if you swapped him for Pacome Dadier, and instead of Pacome Dadier being the rookie wing, it was Tyler Kolek with his experience and with his college, accolades as the rookie wing, I would absolutely be shouting from the rooftops, if Kevin McCullough was healthy, I would be saying
he is healthy.
Well, he hasn't gotten time all year, but whatever. That's probably a bad example. But if Kolek. It was, but here's the thing. Kolek is a point guard.
Which the Knicks have fewer of right now with Jalen Brunson out. And also, if Pacome Dadier had the level of experience and talent that you were describing, he wouldn't have been available to the Knicks at 25 because he would have been taken in the top 10.
110%. Which is, again, this is a stupid conversation. My point is,
I don't think it's a stupid conversation.
I think it is because Cameron Payne played, what did he play, 15, 20 minutes the other night?
This isn't about not playing Cameron Payne.
But to me, it is about playing Cameron Payne because you're not playing Cameron Payne and Tyler Kolek on the floor at the same time.
Right. You're not. So, but then it's the thing of, okay, if you're keeping Deuce McBride in the second unit and not starting him. I mean, we've seen before when the Knicks, what was it, a couple of years ago, where they even started Deuce ahead when Brunson was missing time. And then they still had a backup. Was it quickly when they didn't even move quickly into the starting lineup? They can be creative. And that's kind of the point. Why are we siloing? Why are we creating boxes for these players? I don't know why it's so funny is the thing.
Right. No, that's fine.
Genuinely. Why is Kolek 101 on your list of 100 things of concerns when there's an opportunity for him?
Because I don't think he's going to make one bit of difference as far as whether the team achieves its goals this year.
That's my personal opinion. Long-term, not long-term. We're not talking about this year's team and how we maximizes the ceiling of this year. I'm talking strictly about the fact that Jalen Brunson is injured and they need players. And they need, if they can find avenues to play guys and get them reps.
Okay.
And also it fits into that role. I don't know why.
So
it's
you
that
think
much of a concern.
it's a combination of Tyler Kolek could help, and it would also benefit Tyler Kolek in the long run.
Correct. And
Whereas
I'm not
I'm coming
saying
from
play him 30 minutes a game.
No,
I'm
I know
saying
you're
if you
not.
can find 10 minutes,
Okay.
which I think you can, now that Brunson's not there, why not? That's
Fine.
where I'm at.
One, we'll agree to disagree on the premise, which is I don't care about Tyler Kolek's development this season, or like right now. I will start caring about Tyler Kolek's development again the day after the Knicks get eliminated from the playoffs. Number one. Number two, I don't think he could help the team in any meaningful way this season. And putting that aside, and I think this gets back to where we are on the same page, the fact that even if you believe 100% what you believe about the situation, which I don't think is crazy. I shouldn't laugh. It's not crazy. If you believe what you believe, the fact that apparently, or maybe, I don't know, maybe it's not as big of a deal was made of this as I am perceiving from someone who has not paid attention to it. The fact that as big a deal was made of this as it was over a game, again,
You're conflating two different things, though. That's let me ask you this. Do you feel that the Knicks can win a championship this year?
I think it's better than a 0% chance.
Okay. Do you think they have a better chance of winning a championship next year? Based
Probably.
on all the avenues that okay. So if you think the Knicks have a better chance of winning a championship next year than this year, why is it that they wouldn't then think of next year by already trying to accelerate a learning curve for someone like Kolek? Because if it's not going to impact the long term of this season, then why aren't we thinking of, hey, how do we put this player in the best position to succeed for next season too?
Because I don't think playing Tyler Kolek 8 minutes a game over the next 2-3 weeks is going to make one iota of difference as to whether or not he becomes a more meaningful contributor to this team next year.
It's akin to September call-ups in baseball. I know baseball's less your thing, but like that's where you get reps. That's where you're able to get you dip your toe into the water, get that experience, take it with you. You win or you learn, right? That's what we always talk about.
We do.
Like, the Knicks are trying to win games, absolutely, but by that logic, then they should never ever play a rookie as long as they live. And I agree that rookies are not going to typically contribute to winning basketball. Okay. But also, if you don't get that experience now, you're going to have to wait till next season. The next season, we're going to sit back potentially and say, man, Kolek's struggling. Is this guy really worth it? And he could have had time. That's really
I think if Tyler Kolek's going to be ready to play next year, he's going to be ready to play regardless of whether he plays 1 minute in the next 3 weeks, 5 minutes in the next 3 weeks, 50 minutes in the next 3 weeks, 100 minutes in the next 3 weeks. That's me. Look, we've done this.
I'm just saying, Deuce McBride had slow roll, I'm sure, but he saw time in his rookie year.
Saw 300 minutes.
NBA level. Right.
He did. Did it make a difference the following season? Who knows? Okay, let's move on to game ball. Given to a player, coach, or entity who accomplished something noteworthy in the week. I don't know if we're required to give out game balls on a week where they did not win a game. We shouldn't.
No, game ball. If we don't do detention when they
go undefeated,
right? Then we shouldn't do a game ball. Coffee's for closers.
So
game balls
we're doing
are for
double
winners.
detention.
I mean, or just detention. Just one round of detention if we need to.
Okay. Well, we went long on the Kolek segment. Yeah. That was not on my bingo card. So you're up first because you won the week. So who are you giving detention to?
I think this one's relatively easy for me. A lot of candidates in a win this week, but congratulations to Draymond Green for getting my detention for the week. You know, the words I'm sorry can often go together very well when we've done something that perhaps was incorrect or inappropriate. And he had the opportunity to apologize for what he said, but instead passed it off and then plugged his own show. But, you know, I mean, it's what new media is, as people have been talking about. And it's right. I guess the ability to say whatever you want, disparaging things. He clearly has a vendetta against Karl Anthony Towns. This has been ongoing for a while. And, you know, Cat has been the unfortunate situation where he's lost family members to illness with COVID. And this is a family friend of theirs, of course, that seemed to lose their life to breast cancer. So, you know, I didn't expect Draymond Green to know that ahead of time, but he had every opportunity to be a little bit more of a human. But I guess he didn't want to. So congrats, Draymond. I guess that's multiple wins for you this week.
I already said my piece on Draymond after the Laker game, and I'm not going to repeat any of that because it's in the middle of the day now. There might be children watching. But I think that is a worthy detention. I could go in a couple of different directions here, and I already unloaded on Tibbs earlier this week. I kind of want to give it to the guy who shot 15% in the 3 games this week, and that's Deuce McBride. But I also feel bad killing McBride for having a rough shooting week when he goes out there, and I think he was put in a tough spot, taking over Jalen Brunson's job against the 4th best defense in the league. So I'm not going to give it to him. I'm going to give it to Josh Hart, coming off the best rebounding game of his career, put forth an exceptional effort, is battling through injuries. His back clearly is not right. A lot of Josh Hart's, again, I'm drinking out of my Josh Hart mug today. There is no single thing that has impacted the Knicks more negatively, certainly on the offensive end this year, than Josh Hart just simply becoming a non-shooter. And I think you continue to see the ramifications of that, and it has put them in a really, really tough spot. And I thought you saw it at different times all throughout this week. I mean, the very first play of the Clipper game, when everything converges on Karl Anthony Towns on a drive, and Cat gets stripped. And meanwhile, there was another play later in the game when Cat makes the pass to the corner to Josh Hart, which is where Josh Hart was for that first play in the game. And he hesitates and he doesn't shoot it. And the offense stalls. And right now, for all the amazing things that he does, and he does a lot of amazing things, Josh Hart needs to shoot the basketball. And I don't know, like, and again, I understand there's a concern here in terms of, like, practice time versus rest and recovery time. And this brings us back to Tibbs, because Tibbs is playing him a million minutes when he's maybe not physically right. So maybe that's why he's not putting up shots on days off and figuring out his shot. So maybe it's a joint detention for Hart and Tibbs, but it's a problem and it needs to improve. And that's all I got to say.
I hope that we can all be loved the same way that Tibbs loves Josh Hart. Like, how great would that be for every person in this world? Yeah, I just this is another example of a very good player over-indexed, perhaps not put in the best position to succeed.
Well, is it? I don't want to get into the whole thing, but like, how? If you're a perimeter player in the NBA, or forget about it, if you're a player on the NBA that's surrounded by 4 shooters, and unless you're going to be involved in every action as a screener, like, you need to, like, I don't know that there's a way to game plan around just not shooting ever.
No, I mean, the Lakers would leave him open and then use Jackson Hayes to close out on him. So that is a Hart problem. That is not a Tibbs problem. But how you scheme around that, especially with that Warriors game, how many Hart and Precious minutes?
The minutes thing.
Right. That's where it's at. It's the performance itself. Like, sure, that's on Hart. He's dealing with his own issues. But if you're the coach and you know that that's what he's dealing with, of course, you're going to rely on that. You're going to trust him. But then it's a question of perhaps maybe questioning who you are trusting to that degree. Because it's kind of like, if you look around at who your friends are, you are the company you keep. It feels sort of like that with Tibbs, where perhaps if there are issues plaguing Hart, that being able to recognize that and then say, okay, if he can't do what I need to get from him, then I need to make that adjustment, because then it certainly falls on him.
Yeah, I think, again, that's why I made the admittedly silly point about the rookie situation before, because if there was a rookie wing on this team that profiled as someone that could defend and shoot, and Josh Hart was still getting 40 minutes a game as he was going through these very clear crises of confidence, I think we would have a different issue on our hands. Okay. As my daughter apparently wants to play, should we get to predictions?
Let's do it.
Okay. So this week, how many games do they play? They play 3 games, all of which are on the West Coast. Monday in Sacramento, Wednesday in Portland, and Saturday, watch party night. We'll talk about that again in a second, at Golden State. You are up first.
Yes, I am. I am going to go with 1 and 2.
Figured you would.
I figured you figured that I would. Exactly. So the Kings are still a good team with the Zach LaVine trade. Trailblazers are blazing their own trail quite well. And the Warriors have been an unstoppable force in so many ways. So I'd like to see the Knicks pick off one of them. I think they can. I would love for it to be 2 or 3, but I would, given where they're at with Jalen Brunson and a West Coast trip, I think one is where I'm at.
It's the smart move. I'll go 2-1 just because I'm not picking 0-3. Even though, no, I'm not picking 0-3. I think 1-2 is the smart play for sure. Okay. Before announcements, are we Mark, any comments or anything or questions or anything, or no? You could I see you. You could shake your head yes or no. Sure. We have something from the masses, the huddled masses. Kevin Danishevsky, here we go. Presuming that this continues to be the starting lineup with JB out, how do you squeeze offense out of what should be a really good defensive group? Hard pick and rolls, cat post-ups, both question marks. My thing that I'd love to see is more Karl-Anthony Towns post-ups, but then again, I've been wanting to see more Karl-Anthony Towns post-ups since opening night. As I put it in my newsletter following the Clipper game, big guy, if they're putting Nicholas Batum on you, you got to put your ass into it. And Karl-Anthony Towns has not put his ass into it. What was that song? It's a hip hop song. And there was a part of the lyrics, put your ass into it.
I don't know that one.
You don't know that one.
I don't.
I'll look it up. That's what I'd like to see. Anything you'd like to see?
More action through Mikal Bridges for sure. Have him continue to get aggressive. Being able to do more that way. Pick and roll opportunities there too, where he can. What was the song?
You Can Do It.
Put
Your Ass Into It by Ice Cube.
Ice Cube. Yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. You got me. Okay. Great. Next question. Robert Cross. Hello, Robert. Discussion has been we need to learn this season. If true, I would like to see if 5 out is viable. That means Hart needs to be on the bench for the playoffs. If not, did we ever see the vision? It's very fair. I don't think you're ever going to get a change to the starting 5. And if it is, I would bet any amount of money that it's Mitch in for Hart as opposed to Deuce in for Hart. I think the reason you're not going to get that is because there's a head coach that just does not believe that the path to winning is paved with 2 small guards in the same backcourt. And if the front office leaves this season feeling like, hey, there's a major, to your point, Robert, that there's a major unanswered question here that we did not get answered because of your hesitancy, I would expect them to look elsewhere for a new coach. That's kind of where I'm at. Jeremy?
Well, the idea of Hart on the bench is largely laughable. And I don't mean that as a slight to Robert. I just mean that as in because like we know that Hart's going to play minutes, and then it's a broader question of, okay, well, perhaps why are we in the position where the belief is that Hart is barely going to be on the bench? And the Knicks have more depth than they had this time, or I guess during the playoffs last year when they had players going down right and left. But to Robert's point, I understand wanting to experiment, wanting to see the best iterations of this year, using this team, mixing and matching to get out of your comfort zone to see, hey, does this work? Mark Dino had a great comment about how it would be, I'm paraphrasing here, but it would essentially be foolish not to experiment in a way where you understand all of what you get. That's a lot of what the regular season can do. And the Knicks are in a point where they can be comfortable enough from a record standpoint where they can do more mixing and matching. And they haven't done that a lot this season. And it's gotten them to this point, and that's a success. And there's no knocking that. But I wish that there are questions that I think have gone unanswered, which it feels like the definitive statement is, well, we know what that is. And maybe we don't. And then it's, well, but Tibbs knows what it is. And then relying on that. So I would love to see some more action, to Robert's point, how we can maximize levels of output.
The only pushback I would give, I don't think Tibbs is as married to Josh Hart as it is he's married to who he believes his 5 best players are. And you could say that that's like, there is no Venn diagram there. That's just a circle, which is fine. But I do think that if Tibbs had if there was another, for instance, a big wing on this team that could defend a little bit and could shoot it, I think my guess would be that it would be a slightly different situation. But of course, I don't know that for a fact. Okay, we got one more question. Last one, courtesy of Rich McLeod. What's going on, Rich? How you doing, buddy? Jalen Brunson, Garrett Cole, Giancarlo Stanton, Sean Manaea, Francisco Alvarez, all injured while Tibbs is the Knicks head coach. Coincidence. I think 2 of those players are Mets and 2 are Yankees.
Correct.
Okay, I got that right. That's good. I did not know that all of those people all those people currently injured?
They are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
Garrett Cole and Giancarlo Stanton don't have elbows anymore. Francisco Alvarez hurt his hand. It was announced today, and Manaea, I'm not actually sure how he was injured. I know Andrew's somewhere screaming what the answer is, but I just don't have it.
Garrett Cole
lat
is
strain
starting...
Oh, well, yeah. Okay. Andrew jumped in the comments. Hey, Andrew, lat strain. That's where he has. And Luis Gil is out. Another one, Rich, on the Yankees. So that's another player that the Yankees are missing.
Garrett Cole's starting pitcher.
Yep.
Giancarlo Stanton, the former Marlin outfielder, who hits a lot of home runs. Sean Manaea, pitcher.
Yep.
And Francisco Alvarez, pitcher.
Battery mate, catcher.
I was so close to going 4 for 4. Okay, that's unfortunate.
And Jalen Brunson's point guard, by the way. He's the same position as Tyler Kolek.
Okay, let's get the hell out of here. Announcements before we leave. We have a watch party next weekend. It's on Saturday. It is at T Squared Social, of course. Where else would it be? It is the Knicks versus the Warriors. We have pregame Knicks trivia starting at 7:30. Tip-off is at 8:30. I will be there. Excited about that one. Free admission, of course, and come down. It's on 42nd Street, right down the block from Grand Central Station. We're this is the one, man. This is the one. Getting off the shine.
Is it though?
We're
having a watch party, so it probably isn't.
Jesus Christ. Oh man. Listen, if you believe you have good vibes, come out and prove it. That's all I got to say about that. Anything else that we need to talk about? No, that's it. Wait, Andrew's here.
Yes, one thing. Sorry to interrupt this scintillating conversation where John let Kevin Danishevsky trigger him into thinking there's a thing about
it wasn't
Tyler
Kevin
going on. What was it? You read a DM and suddenly the whole world was mad about Tyler Kolek? Is that what happened? Or did I put on the rundown? Let's have a rational conversation about whether they should start a point guard since they lost the point guard and you lost your mind.
I didn't know there was a rundown for this episode.
You said you read the email, I thought.
What email?
Never mind. Okay.
I read
the reason I'm here. Thank you, Jeremy, for doing work. Okay. So we're going to bring Mark up here because, hi, Mark, by the way.
Oh, hey, I was actually just typing. I knew Jeremy read the email.
I could tell. He read the list of
suggestions.
Outline suggestions. It's okay.
When he suggested the Tyler Kolek.
It is a very simple.
Okay, Jeremy.
Mark, the very simple thing, which I guess this is poor job on my part, was that Deuce has played 94% of his minutes at the 2. If you lose a point guard, you could start campaign like Tibbs likes to do, or keep everything all in order. And then Kolek plays 7 minutes as the backup point guard. That's the whole suggestion. And apparently that's all stupid. Anyway, Mark's birthday is Wednesday.
It's all
That's why I'm doing this. Okay.
Oh, man.
Happy birthday,
Mark.
to Mark. And
Thank
I wanted
you.
to do this at the end of the pod.
That's great.
I didn't know that was coming.
Should I ask you how old you are? You're going to be?
It's a big number now.
Oh, it's that one.
Is it?
Yeah.
Man.
21.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
No, man.
For the
my 19th, 21st birthday.
Your 19th, 21st birthday. There you go. That's what I do with my mom. You're 29 further, whatever many times you want, Mom.
Yeah, you and Frank Ntilikina.
There you go.
I'll just say this. 40. I was dreading 40 for probably from the day I turned 35. I was dreading 30. I was dreading 40. 40 was not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
Yeah. I was
good to know.
Yeah.
I haven't really started dreading it until this past year, really. And it doesn't feel great. It doesn't feel great. But
well, I mean, listen. When you get to our age, nothing feels great.
Not much feels great anymore, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But no, happy early birthday.
Thank
you. Here's to the next 40.
Cheers.
And some more than that, hopefully.
Well, yes.
Hey, I'll take that. I'll drink
Cheers.
to that. Thank
Indeed.
you.
Happy birthday, Mark.
By the way, actually, I'll actually be at T Square Social on Saturday celebrating my birthday.
That's
Giddy
right.
up.
That's right. Okay, that
So
did work
I will
out. Good.
see some of you guys there, hopefully, and
I'll be there.
we could share a drink there.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
So that's another reason to come to the watch party on
Yeah,
Saturday.
well, come on out for my birthday.
Exactly. We're celebrating Mark's birthday. We're gonna do pregame trivia, and then maybe there's will be a basketball game afterwards. So
Maybe.
maybe.
Allegedly. All right. All right. Thanks everybody for checking out another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Tyler Kolek and Kevin Danishevsky for your contributions. We'll be back with more fun and games before you know it. Enjoy what's left of your weekend, everybody. Peace out.